Okay, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to continue Masechet Sanhedrin. We are in the 7th parak of Masechet Sanhedrin, and we are on 53A-2 in the Art Scroll edition of the Talmud Bavli. And so last time we learned, we saw that there were seven averot, 7 sins that the Torah specifically says that the punishment for that sin is skila, is stoning. But we're going to see in this Mishnah that there are 18 total cases, 18 total averot, where a person can get skila. Our Mishnah is going to enumerate each one of them. And then from this point of the Gemara until about Daf Ayin Bet, I believe, is going to be analyzing these 18 averot that get skila. So how do we know these other mitzvahs, other averos that get skila? They don't say to get stoning the farish. So we learned last time that there's an ov and yudoni. Their punishment for the ov and yudoni, the necromancer and the sorcerer, those who use the dead to talk to the dead and sort of kind of magic type of thing. It says over there, mot yumat, right? They should die, and dimehem bum, or dimehem bo, right? Their blood is on them. From there, we learned anywhere it says dimehem bum, their blood is on their head. That is to teach us that those people get skila. So now the Mishnah is going to bring down the 18 averot, the 18 sins that are punishable with skila. Now, obviously, in order to punish the person with skila, you're going to need to have the warning given to the person, the committing of the sin sin against Savera. You have to have witnesses to it, to skila. Now, skila, according to Chamim, so that means these are the worst sins. These are the worst sins possible. So let's start the Mishnah. These are the ones I think we got cut off a little bit. Okay, we're back, right? Okay.
Yes.
Fine. So starting the Mishnah. Elohein and Iskolin, these are the ones who get skila. Haba al ha'im, someone who has intimate relations with his mother. Okay, obviously, one can understand how this is a terrible crime. Al Eshed Ta'av, or someone had intimate relations with his father's wife. Okay, so not necessarily his mother, as long as it's his father's wife. But Al Hakala, or someone had intimate relations with his daughter-in-law. But Al Hazachur, or someone had intimate relations, the male had intimate relations with another male. Okay? But Al Habehema, or someone had relations with an animal. Or if a woman brings an animal to penetrate her. So and one who curses Hashem, someone who serves Avodah Zarah, or someone who gives his children to the molech. So molech, according to some opinions, is a form of an Avodah Zarah. So then the question is, why the Mishnah bring down Avodah Zarah and then say molech? The process of molech was to take the child and either pass it over a fire or between two fires, Was the child killed in the process or not? It's unclear. The reason why the Tanakama, the Tana of this Mishnah brings it as two separate cases. He holds that Molech is not about the Zara, wasn't about the Zara per se, rather it was a chok. It was something the Goyim did and didn't have a reason, so you're not allowed to follow it. But it wasn't necessarily about the Zara. But still, the Chayev Skila. Uva'al Ov Yidoni. Or someone who did Ov or Yidoni. These are necromancer and the sorcerer. These are the ones who perform magic with the dead, either bones, or we'll see more about it later on in the Gemara in the future. The Mechalas a Shabbos, someone who's Mechalet a Shabbat, someone who desecrates Shabbat. Hamkalel Aviv Imo, someone who curses his father or mother. So Rashi explains, because you have to understand something. If you curse your father and mother, you get skila. But if you hit your father and mother, then you get chenik, you get strangulation, which is the least of the four punishments according to the Chachamim, right? So why is it when it comes to cursing, you get skila, where you come to hitting, you get chenik? So Rashi here says, because what? Because when you curse, you're using Hashem's name as well to curse your parents. So you're cursing your parents and you're using Hashem's name in vain. So it's a double whammy. So you get skila. The Rambam holds the reason why you get skila is because it's something that people do more often. They're more willing to curse their parents than they are to hit their parents. And so since some people think it's okay to curse their parents, Torah has to come down harsher in them and give them the punishment of skila. Beinu Yonah, we saw in the past, the Beinu Yonah says the reason is because you can curse Hashem, but you can't hit Hashem. So since you can curse Hashem and your parents are in partners with creating you, so if you curse your parents, it's like you're cursing Hashem, because you can curse Hashem, so therefore you get skila. But if you hit your parents, you can't hit Hashem. Therefore, it's not as an evil as cursing your parents, and therefore, when it comes to hitting your parents, but you can't hit Hashem, therefore you get chenik. But if you curse your parents and they're partners in creation with Hashem, so therefore you can curse Hashem. Therefore, Amagade, person curses Hashem gets skila. So someone who curses his parents gets skila. That's the way Rabbeinu Yonah learns that. So those are three Rishonim on why cursing your parents you get skila. The next case in the Mishnah, al na'ara ha'me'orasa, and if someone had relations with a na'ara ha'me'orasa, a woman who had erisin done, right? She's betrothed. She is, if someone was with a woman who is engaged, she had erisin done, but she didn't do chuppah yet, they get skila. Why is that? So we already learned that what? That it's a worse sin because she's under her father's reshut, right? Under her father's authority, father's house, and she commits adultery at that stage. She has a husband that's intended for her. She just has to wait for the chuppah, and she's in her father's house, so she's mechalel herself, her father, her future husband, and so it's a worse sin. Therefore, they get skila. She and the person she's with. Bahame sits, and the person who causes an individual to commit avodah zarah. Bahame diach, the person who causes a whole city to do avodah zarah. Why they're counted as two separate, the Gemara will have to explain later on. The hamach hashef, and a warlock. This is a magician. Okay, causes magic. We'll have to see the parameters of this. Again, the Gemara will go through this. Uvein Sarir Moire, right? And the son of who is a Sarir Moire, someone who drinks a lot, eats a lot, he's doing bad things. He's right after his bar mitzvah. Right, the first half of the parak of the next parak will deal with the Ben Sarir Moire. Did it ever actually happen? We'll have to see when we get there. Okay, so those are the 18 cases. Those are the 18 avirot that a person can get skila for. Now the Mishnah is going to start analyzing the first few cases. Okay, first case, haba al ha'im. someone has intimate relations with his mother, chayav aleya, he now is chayav mishum aim umishum eshet av, because of two sins. First, he had relations with his mother, and she is his father's wife, right? There's two separate sins. Why do I need to know they're chayiv? Chayiv for what? You can kill him on either or. On either sin, you can kill him with skila. So why do I know that I have to know there's two sins here? So the way Rashi understands the Gemara here, Rashi understands that if a person did it b'shoigeg, person did it inattentionally, not intentionally, it happened. I don't know how, don't ask me the case. No, happened unintentionally. He had relations with his mother, who was also his father's wife. So he did a b'shoigeg, right? He's chayev kares, right? But he can bring a chatat. He can bring a carbon to get atonement, to get kapara. So he'd have to bring two korbanot. You have to bring two chatats. Why? Because he did two sins. That's the way Rashi here explains it. The way the Meiri who brings from the Yerushalmi, the way the Yerushalmi explains, and Talmud Yerushalmi on Sanhedrin explains this part of the Mishnah, the Chayav Aleya, that is in order to give the warning. In order to give the warning, what do you have to give the warning on? What do you tell the man that he's about to do this sin? How do you give the warning? So it's not dealing with shoygig, right? He's dealing with mazit, right? The guy is going in to have relations with his mother. So which warning do you give him? So according to the first Tana in the Mishnah, you can give him a warning on either or. You can tell him it's forbidden to be with your mother, and you chayiv skila if you do that. Or you can say it's forbidden to be with your father's wife, and you'll be chayiv skila. So either warning is fine. Rabbi Yehuda says, and our Gemara today is going to be dealing with this line of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Einu chayiv elu mishuma ein bilva. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, if a man had relations with his mother, who's also his father's wife, then he's only over because of one, mishum ha'ein bilvad, because of the sin of being with one's mother. That is Rabbi Yehuda, and this is going to be our Gemara today. We're going to delve into why Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's only one sin. L'maisa, it's two sins. It's the sin of being with your father's wife, and the sin of being with your mother. All right, so we'll have to get into that shortly. Let's just finish up the Mishnah. Abba al eshet av, if you had relations with your father's wife, right? So not necessarily your mother. So let's say this is a case where it's not your mother, right? Your father has multiple wives, or your mother is not your father's wife, right? And your father has a different wife. So chayiv mishum eshet av, umishum eshet ish. Before we move on to this line, just to back up in the last case where the guy was with his mother. So he says, according to the Tana Kama, it's chayav mishum aim umishum eshet av, because the mother and his father's wife. Why doesn't it say also because she's an eshet ish? She's married, right? So Tosfos asked this question. This was the second to last Tosfos on that side in the left margin, right? It says mishum aim mishum eshet av. Katani eshet ish. The reason why it doesn't say she's a married woman, because it was after the father's death, right? So after the father's death, it's still considered his father's wife, but she's not considered an eshet ish. She's not considered a married woman. So because of eshet ish, she's not chayiv. But in our case now, it is married. So habal eshet av, you come into your father's wife, not your mother. Chayiv mishum eshet av. You're going to be chayiv because it's your father's wife. Umishum eshet ish, and because she is a married woman. Now, she's considered an eshet av, your father's wife. The Mishnah says, bein b'chay aviv, bein la'achar mitzas aviv, whether it is during the father's lifetime or whether it's after the father's lifetime. So you're not allowed to marry your father's wife even if your father died. it's considered his wife, and it's an isser. Isser chayiv skila. Bein min ha'erusin, bein min anisuin, whether it's from the engagement period or whether it's from the full marriage, meaning that it doesn't make a difference. Once it's your father's kala, once it's your father's wife, even at the erusin stage, a person is not allowed to be with that person. A man is not allowed to be with his father's wife, even from erusin. Okay. The next case the Mishnah brings down, haba al kalato, person who has relations with his daughter-in-law. Okay. Chayiv aleya mishum kalato mishum eshet. He is chayiv because of two sins. He has the sin of being with his kala, being intimate and having relations with his daughter-in-law, which is an isser chayiv skila. Umishum eshes ish, and because she is a married woman, she's married to his son. Bein b'chayiv beno, bein la'achar mitas beno. And guess what? She's still considered a daughter-in-law, even if your son dies and she's no longer married to your son. Is still considered a daughter-in-law. Doesn't make a difference. Bein min ha'erusin, bein min ha'nisuin. Once erusin, the first stage of marriage, was completed, it is already considered married in this regard, and having intimate relations with the daughter-in-law, you would get skila. You get bihayav skila. Okay, that was the Mishnah. Any questions on the Mishnah? Okay, fine. So now we're going to move on to the Gemara. The Gemara is going to be dealing with the statements in the case of a man who has intimate relations with his mother. The Mishnah first said is hayav on two things, because his mother and his father's wife. Rabbi Yehuda said no, only because of the mother. So the Gemara wants to start up and saying, Rabbi Yehuda is not really arguing. Really, you could be chayav on both, your mother and your father's wife. However, there's a certain case where, in that case, then it's only mishum aim because of the mother and not because of the father's wife. What's this case? Tanya was taught in the Braita. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, you know when it is? You know when I said, im lohaita imoy reuya le'avi. It's if the mother was not roy, was not appropriate for his father, meaning they weren't supposed to be married, and they worked together, and the father and his mother, but they weren't supposed to be married. The marriage is a illegal marriage. So there, since the marriage is illegal, then she's not considered his father's wife. That it's an illegal marriage. So therefore, he'll only be chayiv if he's with his mother for his mother, because she's not legally married to, halachically legally married to her father. Now, the Gemara wants to know, what's this case? What's this case of not being halachically married, that's inappropriate halachic marriage? Ma eina re'uya lo. What does it mean that his mother is not appropriate for his father? In lema chayeve kritot v'chayeve mitot beitin. Do you mean those marriages like arayot? You're not allowed to marry your sister, you're not allowed to marry your mother, and he's married to one of these people who are arayot, who you will be punished with karet or punished by death by the courts. Is that the case you're saying in a ruyaloi? So if he's married, if his mother and his father had one of these forbidden relationships that are chayiv karet or chayiv mitah, then it's and then he was with his mother, he wouldn't be chayiv al eshes av on his father's wife because it's an illegal marriage. That means meklad the rabbanon savar alpha gav de ena ruyaloi. That means to say that the rabbis do say, because the rabbis are arguing with Rabbi Yehuda. So I mean, the rabbis do say that such a marriage is, even though it's not appropriate, they're still considered a marriage. But how late like kedushin begava? Everyone agrees there's no kedushin that takes effect. There can never be kedushin Even if he walks over to the girl and he has Adim and everything, he says, but she is his sister, for example, it can never, it's never, no, there is no halachic legal marriage there. Everyone agrees to that. There's no, it's karet, it's chayav mita. You can't have a legal marriage to that type of thing. Ela chayavei lavin. Rather, we're talking about what does it mean inappropriate? Where there is a lav, there is a negative prohibition, but not punishable by karet and not punishable by death. It's just forbidden. Divorcee married to a regular Kohen, right? It's only a lav. There is no punishment of karet. There is no chayav mitzah for that. So they're chayav lavin. They're isser lav of a negative prohibition. So in this case, there's a machloket. There's a machloket whether kedushin is applicable or not. Okay, so the Rabbanan hold, even though this is illegal marriage, but since it's only a lav, it's only a ordinary negative prohibition, the kedushin does take place. The kedushin takes place, but we will force them to divorce because they should not be married. It's illegal. But halachically, the marriage takes place, that she's considered an ashes ish. She's considered a married woman. Rabbi Akiva holds no, even a negative prohibition, the kedushin never takes place. She's never considered married, right? So that's the argument over here. El chayv lavin. Rabbi Yehuda suffered like Rabbi Akiva. The Amar ain't kedushin daisem chayv lavin. That he holds like Rabbi Akiva that says kedushin does not take effect when it's a negative prohibition. So that makes sense now. This is let's say the case of the Mishnah is a Kohen is married to a divorcee. So according to their Rabbanan, say that if a Kohen marries a divorcee, the kedushin takes hold. So if now this man has relations with his mother, it's his mother and his father's wife. So therefore, it's chayav al two. Rabbi Yehuda says no, only one, because I only Rabbi Akiva that even though it's a lav, there is no kedushin cannot take hold. And if kedushin cannot take hold, she's only my mother and she's not my father's wife. Therefore, you can only punish him for the mother, and that is the way the Gemara at this time wants to explain Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, a question to Rabbi Yehuda. I don't know if Rabbi Yehuda actually hold this way. There is a statement in the Mishnah in Yevamot that says, Isser mitzvah v'isser kedusha choletzet v'lo mitya b'mot. Okay, 53A-4. There is something called an Isser mitzvah, Isser kedusha, that you cannot do. Yibum, you must do chalitza. Okay, so let's explain this outside for a moment. All right, the classical case of yibum, a yavama. Okay, what's the case? A man is married to a woman. He dies childless. Torah says that this woman should marry this man's brother. Okay. Now, let's say two brothers marry two sisters. Okay. One of the brothers died without children. Now it's an isser from the Torah, right? It's considered arayot. It's considered forbidden for a man to marry his wife's sister. But now his brother's wife is his wife's sister. So what happens in this case? So in this case, the woman does not need no chalitza, and obviously you can't do yibum on her. So therefore, she goes out scot-free. She doesn't need chalitza. She doesn't need anything, and she's good because it's the ownership of karet, mita, whatever time you have such a negative and such a harsh punishment. If he was to marry her, then you cannot have no yibum, no chalitza, nothing could be done. She goes out scot-free. Okay. Now, what about if it's just an isser lav? It's just a negative prohibition. So, example of a case: a Kohen married a divorcee. He wasn't allowed to, but he did, right? Now he dies. Okay. So now his brother, the other Kohen, should he do Yibum on her or not? She's a Grusha. She's a divorcee. It's an Isser Lav. But in the Torah, we have a principle. Asay doche lo ta'aseh. That a positive commandment pushes away a negative commandment, right? So negative commandment, a Kohen can't be with a divorcee. Positive commandment, you should marry your husband, your brother's wife when he dies childless. So technically, if a positive commandment overrides a negative prohibition, he should be able to take her as his yavama, take her as a yibum, do yibum. However, the Chum said no. Why? Because you're right. The first time he's with his brother's wife, his brother who died, and he's with this woman, that first act is considered a mitzvah, and that is going to be the asay. That's docha de lo asay. But afterwards, after he did yibum with her, is no more a mitzvah. Therefore, now it's going to be an isser lav, and we're not supposed to let negative prohibitions take place. Therefore, the Chachamim said he has to give her chalitza, and he cannot do yibum with her. So now we can understand this line. Rav Oshia says, Isser mitzvah, Isser kedusha, choletzet below mitya b'mod. Certain people who are just an Isser mitzvah, right? We'll define that in a minute. Isser kedusha, and those are Isser kedusha, you do chalitza and not yibum. Now the Gemara says, as we are on Nun Gimel Amid Bet 53b1, Isser mitzvah. What's Isser mitzvah? Shniyot medivrei sofrim. These are second degree arayot, second degree forbidden relations that the Chachamim put into place. An example of this would be a grandmother or a grandfather's wife. Okay, nowhere in the Torah does it talk about a grandmother or a grandfather's wife. This is Chachamim put a second degree of arayot that a person cannot marry them, cannot have relations with them. So it's a mitzvah. Now, why are they called forbidden by a mitzvah? Because a mitzvah to listen to the rabbis. Isser kedusha. What's considered an isser kedusha? Almana lekohen gadol. If it's a widow to a kohen gadol, and grusha v'chalutza lekohen hedjed, or a divorcee or chalutza to an ordinary kohen. B'maya karlo isser kedusha. Why is it called Isser Kedusha? Because it says Kedushim Yu Lilohehem. They should be holy unto their God. So they kind of have to be holy. Therefore, they can't do this. So in these cases, you have to give them chalitza, right? And not do yibum with them. Okay, but Tanu Allah, and we learned about this. Rabbi Yehuda Machalif. Rabbi Yehuda switched around what's considered Isser Mitzvah and what's Isser Kedusha. I mean, whenever it lists in the Gemara as Isser Mitzvah, he would say that's Isser Kedusha. Whenever it's Isser Kedusha, he would switch to say it's Isser Mitzvah. Chalufa, Yehuda Mechal. Rabbi Yehuda just switches around the definitions of which one's an Isser Mitzvah and which was an Isser Kedusha. Chalitza Baya. But that means he requires Chalitza in these cases. So you have to give them Chalitza. Now, this is the punchline. Be'isa kedatach. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Akiva Svirale, if you just told me, right, and you hold, and you think that Rabbi Yehuda agrees to Rabbi Akiva, what did Rabbi Akiva say? Lavin, Nisr Lav, the Kedusha never takes place. That means he compares an Isr Lav. Mikti, let's see. Chayiv Lavin, Rabbi Akiva, Kichayiv Chritot Dame. It's similar like someone who's Chayiv Karet. You're not allowed to, when it comes to Karet, we said she gets off scot-free. She doesn't need Chalitza, doesn't need anything, because you can't do yibum on someone who's chayiv karet. She doesn't need chalitza either. Therefore, she goes out. Now, Rabbi Akiva said that a chayiv elaven is a chayiv karet. No kedushin falls on her. It doesn't work at all. The chayiv kritot laben and chalitza v'yibum ninu, and those are chayiv kritot. There's no chalitza and no yibum. So therefore, if you hold that the isser lav is like an isser karet when it comes to kedushin, Therefore, she should not need chalitza either. And here Rabbi Yehuda is talking about, switch which one's an Isser Kedusha, which one's an Isser Mitzvah, meaning he holds that you do need to give chalitza. But how could Rabbi Yehuda hold that if we're saying he holds like Rabbi Akiva, that if it's an Isser Lav, it's not appropriate, and therefore the marriage doesn't take place. And therefore, if the man is with his mother, who is an Isser Lav to his father, he only is punished for Isser Aim and not the Isser of Eshes Av. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yehuda, Lidvarav the Tanakama Kalmar. He wasn't explaining his own opinion when he said that switch around, which was an Isser Mitzvah and which was an Isser Kedusha. Rather, he was saying in the Tanakama's opinion, in your opinion, you're saying that Kedushin does take place by an Isser Lav, and you have to give Chalitza in these cases, switch around which one is called an Isser Mitzvah, and switch around which one is called an Isser Kedusha. But he himself does not hold his way, rather he holds like Rabbi Akiva, and he holds that an Isser Lav is like Isser Karet, and Kedushin doesn't take hold, and you don't even have to give Chalitza, she goes off scot-free. Doesn't need any Ibam, no Chalitza, nothing needs to be done. Okay? That is the opinion, this is the way to understand the Gemara according to the way we brought down so far. However, this is in contrast to the Mishnah, because the Mishnah didn't say that Yehuda said it's only in a case where it is the mother is not fit for his father. But Rabbi Yitzchak came and he taught the Braita. Many times in Shas, when Rabbi Yitzchak comes and explains the Mishnah, we end up learning the Mishnah like Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, he's not liable if he's with his mother, even if she's his father's wife, because in any case, only because of the mother, not because of the father's wife. The Tamamai, what's the reasoning? So Amar Abaya says the Amar Kra Imecha He. Okay, so the article did a very beautiful job over here, if I may say, on the bottom of 53b1. It says, Ervat avicha ve'ervat imecha lo tigale, imechahi lo tigale ervata. It brings down the pasuk that we're dealing with right now. Okay? So it says over here, right, Ervat avicha. Let's try to translate it. It has a translation. The nakedness of your father and the nakedness of your mother. You shall not uncover. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. Omar Baya says, Omar ka imechahi. She is your mother. So it's teaching us, Mishum Imo Ata Mechayevo. You are Mechayev because she's your mother. But you're not Mechayev because she's your father's wife. So what is Abaya saying? There's a mute. There's a narrowing of the prohibition in the pasuk. Imechahi, she's your mother. Therefore you're Chayev, not because she's your father's wife. Gemara says, what about the next pasuk? Look on that same note 10. On 53b1 on the bottom. It's the next pasuk. It says, Ervat Eshet Avicha lo tigale, Ervat Avichahi. It's your father's nakedness. So Ervat Eshet Avicha lo tigale, Ervat Avichahi. If Avichahi is also an exclusion. To tell you you're only responsible, Mishum Eshet Av Ata Mechayeva. You're only a Mechay because of she's your father's wife. But you're not Mechay because of your mother. That one, hold on. I think Gemara has like a big problem with this. Because so in a case when she's your mother and she's your father's wife, what happens? From two sides, it gets excluded. Okay, look. Hashta imo. Now, if she's your mother and she's not your father's wife, you're mechayim because it says imechahi. She is your mother. So she's your mother and she's not your father's wife, then you're mechayim for that. The next pasuk says, "Erat avichai," right? So eshet of it, if you're with your father's wife, who's not your mother, you're also mechai because it says avichai, she's your father's wife. So only in that case, what comes out now, if you learn two exclusions, it's only your father's wife, but it's only your mother. Imo she eshet aviv lo mechai klap. Then if she's your mother and she's your father's wife, and you had intimate relations with her, then you're not responsible at all because two exclusions. It's your mother and it's your father's wife, and it's your father's wife and it's your mother. So you can't be responsible for both. It's either or, the way you wanted to learn this exclusions. So, but furthermore, the The Rabbanan also. It says imecha. And what do they do with that? They don't use it as an exclusion to say only for your mother and not for your father's wife you're responsible. Rather, it's coming to teach us something that Rav Shisha, the son of Rav Idi, taught. We're going to see what that is later on. Rabbi Yehuda Nami, Rav Yehuda also holds that this is needed for the teaching of Rav Shisha by Rav Idi. So Imechahi doesn't come to teach us this. It can't. Because if you say Imechahi, then you have Avichahi, and then both excludes, that means that if you're with your mother, who's your father's wife, you would be potter. And it's not possible. That's ridiculous. So Amar Acha Breidav Ika Amar Kra Ervata. The end of the pasuk says, read that pasuk again. Note 10, you can look back. It says Ervata. You shall uncover her nakedness, and that's in a lashon yachid, in a singular, a lashon yachid in a single language. To tell us, Meshum erva achat ata mechayevo. You're going to be responsible for one erva. You cannot be held accountable for two arayot. Only on one. You can only be responsible for one, liable for one nakedness, and not for two, because it says it b'lashon yachid. Gemara says that can't be, because it says in the pasuk, ervat kalatecha lo tigaleh. Do not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. Eshet bin Chahish is your son's wife. Loi tegaleh ervata. She did not uncover her nakedness. Now it says there also ervata, and she is your, and it's in a singular form. Hachinami mishum erva achar ata mechayevo. Are you saying he's only chay because of one erva? Mishum shtei eriyot, and he's not responsible for two arayot? But we learned in our Mishnah, Abba Kalato, person had relations with his daughter-in-law. He has two sins over here. He's with his kala, and he's with his daughter-in-law, and his kalato, and his daughter-in-law, and she's a married woman. So she's considered his kala, whether his son is alive or whether he's dead. He doesn't come and say, oh no, he's only chayiv on one. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't argue in that part of the Mishnah. You can go back and look. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't argue. Rabbi Yehuda argues on the aim, on the mother case, but not on the kala case. So why does it say ervata? She's one body. She's one body, and he's having relations with this one body. The trait is surin, even though there are two isurim in her, ketiv ervata. So ervata has nothing to do with how many sins. It has to do with how many bodies he is sinning with. But it's only one body. But she might have multiple isurim, prohibitions on her. Ketiv ervata. That's where it says ervata. Achinami. So too over here, by him being with his mother, who is his father's wife, achinami keeping the chad gufahu. Since she's one body, alfagav the trait isurim ninus. I might actually have two isurim as mother and father's wife. Ketiv ervata. Therefore, it says ervata. So ervata, nothing to do with how many isurim, but rather has to do with how many gufim, how many bodies. It's only one body. Therefore, it says ervata. But it might be two isurim. So where does Rabbi Yehuda learn that you only chayiv al aim and not for the father's wife? So Eila Omar Rava. So Rava comes and says what Abaya's first answer was right. And when it says imechahi, it's coming to tell us you're only responsible for the sin of being with your mother, even if you're with your mother who's also your father's wife. Why? K'sav Rabbi Yehuda. Yehuda goes back to that pasuk. So I want to take a look at that pasuk. Turn back to 53b1 in note 10. The first pasuk there. Ervat avicha. When we translated that first, we said the nakedness of your father. What does that mean, nakedness of your father? Does that mean not to have a man shouldn't have homosexual relations with his father? That's what it means. Ervat avicha. Actually, your father's nakedness. So comes Rava and says, Rabbi Yehuda, when it says ervat avicha in this pasuk, it doesn't mean your father's nakedness. Rather, it means zu eshet avicha. Ervat avicha in the pasuk means the erva of your father's wife. Zu eshet avicha. Umati le b'gzer shava. And we're going to learn this from Gzer Shava. And we're going to see this Gzer Shava later. It's going to be brought down in the Sifra. We're going to see this in a moment. You learn from Xer Shava that Ervat Avicha means Ervat Eshet Avicha, the father's wife. Umashma ben Eshet Aviv Shi Imo, and it means whether it's his father's wife is also his mother, ben Eshet Aviv She'enu Imo, or whether his father's wife is not his mother. Imo She'enu Eshet Av Minayin. How do I know if it's his mother who is not his father's wife? Right? How do you have this case? That's not his father's wife. He had relations with a single woman, and it wasn't done to be Mekadosh and to make it his wife, and he had a child from them out of wedlock. So it's not his father's wife. So therefore, imo she'eno eshet of minayin. Where do we know such a case? So Talmud Lomar ervat imecha lo tigale. Right. So going back to that pasuk in 53b1. So ervat avicha means ervat of your father's wife. But ervat imecha means your mother who's not your father's wife. Okay, it means you're not your father's wife. Ervat lo tigale. Then the pasuk says imecha he, she is your mother. What is this coming back? It's coming back to the first part. When it's ervat avicha, when it's the erva of your father's wife, if she's also your mother, then imecha he. You're going to be responsible for your mother. Mishum imo atamechayevo, mishum eshet aviv. Not because of your father's wife. So this is the way Rabbi Yehuda learns the pasuk. So let's take a look again. Go to 53b1. I'm going to read the pasuk the way Rabbi Yehuda is learning it right now, according to Rava. Ervat avicha. Do not uncover your father's wife's nakedness. Ervat imecha. And do not uncover your mother, who's not your father's wife. Lo tigale, do not reveal it. Imecha hi. Oh, even if it's going back to the first part, even if it's your father's wife, who's also your mother, now in this case, imecha hi, she is your mother, and that's the sin that you're going to be over. Lo tigale ervata, do not uncover her nakedness. That's the way Rabbi Yehuda learns. And we're now going to see a Braita, and this is from Torat Kohanim. This is the Sifra. This is a Sifra known as Torat Kohanim. And we're going to see a Braita that goes exactly like Rabbi Yehuda over here, the way Rava is learning it. Tanik to the Rava. There's a Braita in the Sifra and Torat Kohanim that's taught like Rava. Now we're going to look in another pasuk. Okay, so if you look on this page, 54A1, it's going to deal with the pasuk in Vayikra 2011. Pasuk says, let's just read it first. Second pasuk in that box. Ish asher yishkav it Ashen Aviv, man who sleeps with his father's wife, Ervat Aviv Gila, he uncovered the nakedness of his father. Motu Matu Shnehem Demehem Bam. Both of them have to die, and they're killed, and their blood is on them. And the fact that it says Demehem Bam, that's how we know they have to get skila, right? Demehem Bam from Ovenit Oni. Okay, so now this is the pasuk that the Braita is going to analyze. Ish, when it says ish, what does it mean? Prat lekata. It means if a minor had relations with his mother, then this would not be the case. Right? It has to be ish, to be a man had relations. Asher yishkav et eshet aviv, who sleeps with his father's wife. Now, what does it mean? Father's wife. Mashma, it means bein eshet aviv she'imai, whether it means that it's your father's wife who's also your mother, or if it's your father's wife who's not your mother. Imo, how do I know if it's your mother, but it's not your father's wife? How do I know you also get skila? So Talmud Loimar, Ervat Aviv Gila. So you look in the pasuk, right in the middle of 2011, it says Ervat Aviv Gila. So from these words, we're going to learn that means your mother also. Ervat Aviv Gila also means the mother, who's not the father's wife. Why? Mufne. It's extra. I don't need it in the pasuk. You already told me. A man who is with his father's wife. Ervat Aviv Gila. What I need that word for? It's extra. But since it's extra, Mufne lahakash will do. We made Xer Shabbat. Learn Xer Shabbat from it. Later on, the Braita is going to explain what the Xer Shabbat is. Now it says Mot Yumutu. You should kill them. That means Beskila. You're saying there should be stoning, or maybe it should be any of the other ones. Never kan timehembam, but never beobidoni timehembam malahim beskila. Since it says timehembam makes their shabbat to obidoni avkam beskila, so to here it means skila. Now ona shemanu. Now this pasuk talking about the punishment, right? Moti mutu, that's the punishment. All the time, anything that's punishable needs to have two psukim, one for the warning and one for the punishment. So where is the warning pasuk? So that's the pasuk we were dealing with earlier. Erbat Avicha. So that's 18:7. So now, Azhara Minayan, how do I know the warning? So Talmud Leimer Erbat Avicha. Right? Erbat Imecha lo tigalei, mechi lo tigalei ervatah. Right? So what does it mean, Erbat Avicha? Zu Eshet Avicha. Erbat Avicha means your father's wife. That's the way Rabbi wanted to explain Rabbi Yehuda. When it says in pasuk Erbat Avicha, it doesn't mean your father's nakedness, rather it means your father's wife's nakedness. So Erbat Avicha Zu Eshet Avicha. Ato Emre Eshet Avicha. You say it's your father's wife. Maybe it means your father's nakedness itself. You're not allowed to be with your father. You're not allowed to sodomize your father. So how do I know that it means your father's wife? It says over here in our pasuk, Ervat Avicha lo tigaleh. And it says in our pasuk in 2011, Ervat Aviv Gila, right? The father of your, the nakedness of your father you revealed. And the pasuk in the beginning said, the ish asher yishkav et ishes aviv, Ervat Aviv Gila. The man who was with his father's wife revealed his father's nakedness. So you see, that means Ervat Aviv means your father's wife. So Mala Halam Ishus Akasim Daber. When it says Ervat Aviv Gila in 2011, it means your father's wife's nakedness. So when it says over here Ervat Avicha, it also means your father's wife's nakedness. Umashma, and it means Bein Eshes Aviv Shehi Ima. And it means whether she is your father's wife, who's your mother, Bein Eshes Aviv Shehi Ima, or is your father's wife, who's not your mother. How do I know if it's your mother, but it's not your father's wife? Talmud Leimer it says Ervat Imecha lo tigalet, right? That's our pasuk 18:7. For Ervat Imecha lo tigalet, that's how I know it. So I only see it talks about the mother in the warning pasuk. Then it compares a mother who's not your father's wife to a mother who is your father's wife. It says Ervat Avicha, which means your father's wife. But Ervat Imecha means your mother who's not your father's wife. So it compares them in the warning. Onish Menayin. How do I know it also goes into the punishment? So Nemar Khan Ervat Avicha lo tigale. It says over here Ervat Avicha in our pasuk in 18:7 Ervat Avicha, and it says lo tigale, don't reveal it. And here in our pasuk in 2011, Nemar Lalan Ervat Aviv Gila, the nakedness of your father you revealed. So it's the same words. So you can make a Gzer Shava. Ma Bazhara, when the warning Asa Akatav Imoy. It compares a mother who's not the father's wife to a mother who is his father's wife, right? Ervat Avicha, mother is your father's wife. Ervat Yimecha, and your mother is not your father's wife. It compares them to in the Azhara. And we have the Gzer Shava, Ervat Avicha loy tigale. So you see, to the Gzer Shava, the punishment also applies to a mother who is not the wife of the father. So imechahi, now the Baita concludes, and this is our proof. This is the way Ritzak learns, and this is the proper way of learning. Imechahi, now the pasuk says imechahi, she is your mother. Mishum imo ata. So if you're with your mother, who's also your father's wife, you're only mechayev on the mother of a iyata mechayev mishum eshenav, and you're not mechayev because of the wife of a father, because the imechahi is coming to exclude the wife of the father if she is the mother and the wife of the father. He gets killed because of the mother. And why is that important to Yehuda? Because you would have to give the warning, right? You would have to give the warning about you're with your mother, and according and if it's a done b'shoigeg, then accidentally they'll have to only bring one korban because he's not chayiv on the father's wife if he's with his mother, who is his father's wife, based on the way Rabbi Yehuda learned the psukim. Okay. If you have any questions, I'll take it at this time. Otherwise, we're good. Anything? All right.